Kevin, 11-time All-Star, League MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. Now it's time to add to your resume, NBA champion. How does that sound?
Man, I'm so hyped right now. Anything's possible. Anything's possible!
He once looked Kobe Bryant in the eye and said, "I hate you," not out of malice, but out of fire. Because for 12 years, Kevin Garnett's love for the game was tested by pain, betrayal, and a franchise that caged him. How did a man trapped in failure for over a decade turn all that pain into the loudest scream in NBA history? Anything is possible. In 1995, the Minnesota Timberwolves selected an 18-year-old kid named Kevin Garnett with the 5th overall pick. He wasn't just a prospect. He was a messiah for a dead franchise. As the first player in 20 years to jump straight from high school to the pros, Garnett's entire identity was forged alongside Minnesota's. His fate and the franchise's fate were locked together from day one. The impact was immediate. By his second season, Garnett dragged the Timberwolves to their first ever playoff berth. Then came 8 consecutive postseason appearances. This should have been the beginning of a dynasty. Instead, it became the beginning of a nightmare. 7 straight first-round exits. The same loss over and over again. It wasn't just losing. It was a psychological trap of identical, repeating failure. Through it all, Garnett stayed loyal. In 1997, he signed a record-breaking 6-year, $126 million contract, binding his prime to Minnesota. Years later, he would explain his singular drive. "My goals have always been to win a championship here with the Twin Cities." In 2004, he said it plainly, "I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say I gave everything that I had." This loyalty, this refusal to abandon his post, would become the foundation of his 12-year pain. The 2003-2004 season felt like the breakthrough. With veterans Sam Cassell and Latrell Sprewell joining the roster, Minnesota finally had the pieces. Garnett was transcendent, winning MVP with 24.2 points, 13.9 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. The team broke their first-round curse and advanced to the Western Conference Finals. In Game 7 against Sacramento, Garnett delivered 32 points, 21 rebounds, 4 steals, and 5 blocks. The Wolves had arrived. But this moment of hope was a trap. The 2004 run proved to Garnett that winning was possible in Minnesota. It strengthened his resolve to stay and see it through. The organization's failure to sustain this success wasn't a failure of possibility. It was a direct betrayal of it, making the fall that much more painful. The collapse was swift and total. The next season, the veteran core unraveled. The team was ripped apart by infighting and management's failure to handle contracts. After 58 wins in 2004, they won only 44 games in 2005 and missed the playoffs entirely. This quick collapse was the beginning of the end. With the team in freefall, the media narrative became canon. Unable to dissect the complex front office failures, the narrative defaulted to the simplest explanation: the star player can't win the big one. Headlines were dedicated to Garnett wasting his prime in Minnesota. This criticism was amplified by the crushing contrast of his peers. During Garnett's 12-year tenure of futility, Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant won 3 consecutive titles from 2000 to 2002. Tim Duncan, his direct positional rival, lifted trophies for San Antonio in 1999, 2003, 2005, and 2007. The question from critics was simple and brutal. Why them and not him? The pain wasn't a media construct. It was a private hell that finally boiled over. In a 2005 interview with legendary coach John Thompson, Garnett, the reigning MVP, was asked, "What's driving you?" The facade shattered. The 28-year-old superstar, visibly shaken by the team's 44-win, non-playoff reality, broke down. His voice cracked as he repeated the phrase that defined his existence: that I'm losing, that I'm losing. He became so emotional that he motioned for the cameras to stop rolling, telling Thompson, "These are tears of pain." This moment is the single most important artifact in understanding his story. This wasn't a man buckling under pressure. This was a man being crushed by a burden he loyally refused to put down. His repeated plea, "I'm tired of losing," wasn't resignation. It was the sound of a man trapped in a burning building. The truth about Garnett's wasted prime was buried in legal documents and front office blunders. In 1999, desperate to build a contender, Minnesota's front office struck an illegal, under-the-table agreement with free agent Joe Smith. The arrangement involved Smith signing 3 consecutive one-year contracts for below-market value. In exchange, the team had a secret contract promising to reward him with a massive $86 million payday using his bird rights after the 3rd year. This illegal deal allowed the team to add talent while mortgaging its future. When the secret deal was exposed, NBA Commissioner David Stern brought down unprecedented punishment. He fined the team $3.5 million and voided Smith's contract. But the crippling blow was stripping Minnesota of their next 5 first-round draft picks. This punishment is the central reason for Garnett's decade of failure. The franchise, now lacking the primary tool for acquiring young talent, was rendered impotent. It became impossible to build a sustainable supporting cast around Garnett's massive contract. He was not just on a bad team, he was the superstar of a failed state, a franchise that had been asset stripped by the league as a consequence of an illegal deal he had no part in. He was criticized for failing to do what his own front office had made impossible. The Joe Smith scandal wasn't isolated, it was the centerpiece of a legacy of failure. The franchise fumbled its relationship with Stephon Marbury, who forced a trade. They let young Chauncey Billups walk away for nothing after the 2001-02 season. Billups would go on to win Finals MVP with Detroit in 2004, the very team that would roadblock Garnett's MVP squad. With the few draft picks they kept, they selected busts, failing to provide any meaningful help. The tragic irony is that the Joe Smith scandal was a direct consequence of Garnett's own $126 million contract from 1997. The front office, having committed such a massive sum to one player, panicked and cheated the system to build around him. The very illegal act they committed for him doomed him by robbing the team of the picks needed to get him help. Garnett's loyalty finally began to crack. In 2006, he aimed a quote directly at his own front office. "I just wish that the Minnesota Timberwolves would work a little harder, or work as hard as I work in the summertime." The 2005 tears were now recontextualized. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pure, unadulterated fury at being trapped by incompetence, betrayed by the organization he had given everything to. On July 31, 2007, ESPN announced the end of an era. Kevin Garnett was traded to the Boston Celtics in a 7-for-1 blockbuster, the largest trade for a single player in NBA history. This wasn't ring chasing. The 2006-07 Celtics were a 24-win team, a proud franchise mired in its own purgatory. Their star, Paul Pierce, was trapped in a situation hauntingly similar to Garnett's. At his introductory press conference, Garnett laid out his thesis. "This ain't about a fresh start. It's about unfinished business." His true first words came in his first meeting with the team. Coach Doc Rivers recalled that Garnett didn't bother with pleasantries. He immediately challenged his teammates. "What are you going to give up?" From day one, this was about sacrifice. Garnett's revenge was a demonstration that his methodology worked. The intensity mocked as too emotional in Minnesota immediately became the new law in Boston. Footage from his first practices shows a man possessed yelling, "Defense, let's go!" He established a non-negotiable standard. Veteran guard Jason Terry said, "He practices like he plays. I'm not a practice guy, but it makes me work even harder." Doc Rivers, initially skeptical, was quickly converted. "He changed the culture of this franchise," Rivers stated. "And it's still here. It hasn't left since. That was all Garnett. He didn't just join the Celtics. He remade them in his own image." The impact was quantifiable and historic. The 2006-07 Celtics won 24 games. The 2007-08 Celtics won 66 games. This 42-win improvement was the biggest single-season turnaround in NBA history. This statistic is the definitive refutation of the stat pattern narrative. The revenge is in the numbers. To achieve this historic leap, Garnett's personal stats decreased. His field goal attempts dropped from 17.0 to 13.9. His scoring dropped from 22.4 to 18.8 points per game. This inverse correlation is undeniable proof. In Minnesota, he had to put up massive stats just for the team to stay afloat. In Boston, he was unleashed to play winning basketball. He won the 2008 Defensive Player of the Year award, anchoring the league's #1 defense. He became what Doc Rivers perfectly termed the greatest superstar role player ever. The visual proof was everywhere. Garnett diving for loose balls, screaming after blocks, physically imposing his will. If you've ever been counted out like KG, stay locked in. Hit subscribe right now and tell me in the comments. What's your favorite comeback story in sports? The 66-win regular season was the setup. The 2008 playoffs were the trial. This run forced Garnett to confront and dismantle every criticism that had defined his career. The dossier of criticisms was clear, soft, a label applied to finesse big men who lacked physical grit, too emotional, that he buckled under pressure and played emotionally with his fire seen as weakness rather than weapon. Stat patter, that his numbers were empty, a ceiling raiser but not a floor raiser, a man who can't win the big one. The 2008 playoffs would serve as a point-by-point rebuttal. After being pushed to 7 games by Atlanta, doubts about the soft Celtics were at fever pitch. Their next opponent was LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The series was a low-scoring defensive street fight. In Game 1, Garnett was the primary defender as the Celtics held LeBron to 2 for 18 from the field. Throughout the 7-game series and in the series clinching Game 7, Garnett proved his emotional fire was a tool. He didn't buckle under pressure. He was the pressure. The final test before the finals was Detroit, the ultimate referendum on softness. With the series tied 2-2, Garnett delivered his stat patter rebuttal. In must-win Game 5, Garnett scored 33 points. This wasn't empty stats. This was surgical, clutch performance against the league's toughest defense, scoring 10 points in the fourth quarter to take control. This victory was a profound closing of the loop. The 2008 Pistons were the ghost of his 2004 failure. Detroit won the finals in 2004, Garnett's MVP year. Their finals MVP was Chauncey Billups, the very player Minnesota had incompetently let walk. To get his own ring, Garnett had to personally defeat the team and player that represented Minnesota's greatest what-if. It was personal exorcism. By the time Boston advanced to the finals, the criticisms had been rendered moot. The unspoken "watch me" had been delivered. The locker room shot of a smirking Garnett, towel over his head, was the look of a man who knew he had just proven his entire philosophy correct. After 12 years of pain, the narrative arrived at its final destination. It had to be the Lakers, the NBA's greatest rivalry, the evil empire that had roadblocked him in 2004. This wasn't just a final, it was the final. The series culminated in Game 6 in Boston. This was not a narrow escape, it was a 131-92 dismantling, a 39-point blowout, the most lopsided championship-clinching game in modern history. This blowout was the final piece of the revenge. A close game is won by a hero, a 39-point blowout is won by a system. This was the ultimate validation of Garnett ball. The defense he installed from day one held the Lakers to just 35 points in the first half. It was a total systemic victory that proved his process wasn't just winning, it was dominant. Garnett finished with 26 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. The signature moment was a ferocious and one bank shot over Lamar Odom, where Garnett let out a primal roar as the lead swelled. As the lead ballooned past 30 points, the camera found him on the bench, fists clenched, breathing heavily, 12 years of frustration visibly melting away. As the final buzzer sounded, the 12-year exorcism was complete. Garnett walked to center court, dropped to his knees, and kissed the leprechaun logo. He was genuflecting after 12 years of being denied. He was completely overcome by happiness and disbelief, a man broken down by the sheer weight of his own vindication. The emotional apex came in the post-game interview, a moment that has become one of the most iconic in sports history. This was the direct bookend to the 2005 Thompson interview. The "I'm losing" tears were the question. This was the answer. The 2005 tears of pain were transmuted into 2008 tears of absolution. Every word of his scream was a direct response to his past. Anything is possible. This was the explicit answer to a career where he was told it's impossible to win in Minnesota, and you can't win the big one. Top of the world. This was the direct payoff for 2005 when he was at the bottom of the world, weeping in a quiet gym. I'm certified. What can you say now? This was the revenge. A direct public address to every critic, every stat patter comment, every soft label. He was now and forever certified by the only authority that matters, a championship. The final expert testimony codifies his legacy. Doc Rivers. He changed everything. Culture, defense, attitude. He's the greatest superstar team builder that I've seen in the history of the game. That was all Garnett. Paul Pierce, as the man on the 24-win team, confirmed that Garnett immediately became the team's spiritual leader. His summary was simple and profound. That man gave us life. A revenge story risks curdling into bitterness. What makes Garnett's story positive is that his revenge was never aimed at the people or fans of Minnesota. It was aimed at the critics who misunderstood him and the institution that failed him. When he returned to Minnesota, the fans gave him a standing ovation. They cheered him. They understood. They knew his grudge was with owner Glenn Taylor over broken promises. The fans' applause was their absolution, an acknowledgement that he had earned his escape. The 12-year arc is complete. Picture this. Black and white footage from 2005. A 28-year-old Kevin Garnett, towel over his head, shoulders shaking as he weeps. The audio, "I'm losing." Then slow-motion footage from 2008. A 31-year-old Kevin Garnett, head back, screaming at the rafters as championship confetti falls. The audio, "Anything is possible." 12 years of loyalty, 1 year of redemption. The best revenge is success. Garnett's 2008 victory did more than close his own loop. It created the blueprint for the next era. The Garnett-Pierce-Allen trio is considered the modern era's first big three. After beating LeBron in the playoffs, Garnett gave James advice. Loyalty is something that hurts you at times. It was this defeat and this advice that influenced LeBron's 2010 decision to form his own big three in Miami. Garnett's revenge was so total. It not only certified his own legacy, but changed the behavior of the next generation's greatest player. If KG's story hit you the way it hit me, drop a comment about what loyalty means to you, and I'll see you in the next one.